Welcome back, Focus Learners. I am so thrilled to have you here for another explainer today, because we've got a really fascinating breakdown queued up for you. We're going to completely unpack the operational strategy, the target demographic, and the very real hard financial realities of an absolute massive U.S. home builder, KB Home. We're going to look right past all that typical real estate jargon to see exactly how a company of this sheer scale engineers its growth and how it weathers market shifts using their Q2 2026 data as our guide.
Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. The KB Home Blueprint, 2. Their built-to-order advantage, 3. The modern home buyer, 4. Mapping future growth, and 5. The financial reality.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the KB Home Blueprint.
Before we get into the weeds with margins and revenues, let's just ground ourselves for a second. Behind every single corporate metric, there is a physical reality, right? We're talking actual neighborhoods, living spaces, and gorgeous modern kitchens just like this one. At the end of the day, we are examining the business of the American dream of homeownership.
And you know, it's a business KB Home has been in for a very long time. They were founded back in 1957. Let that sink in for a minute. That is nearly 70 years of operation. And since that founding date, they've built over 700,000 homes. You simply don't reach that kind of immense scale without a highly specific, repeatable strategy.
Which brings us to Section 2, the built-to-order advantage.
Built-to-order, or BTO, is literally the core engine of their entire business model. Rather than just building a finished home, sticking a sign in the yard, and hoping someone likes it enough to buy it, BTO is a model where buyers actively personalize their homes from the ground up. They choose the floor plan, the specific lot, the exact square footage, and the final finishes. What's absolutely brilliant here is that it gives the buyer the power to directly influence their final sales price based on what they value most and what they can actually afford.
If we zoom in on the micro level for a second, contrast the standard finished neighborhood exterior with the inside of a KB Home design studio. This is the exact room where buyers sit down to make those personal choices. It perfectly bridges the gap between a standard corporate subdivision and a truly personalized living experience.
So, the crucial takeaway is how this super consumer-friendly process translates into massive corporate benefits. By standardizing floor plans based on local market data, they keep the personalization affordable. But look at those last 2 points: lower volatility and reduced speculative inventory. Because the homes are literally built to order, sales are strictly aligned with deliveries. That makes the company's revenue highly predictable. Plus, it drastically reduces their reliance on unsold inventory that's just sitting empty on lots, collecting dust, and eating up capital.
Moving right along to Section 3, the modern home buyer.
Check out this breakdown. Fully 50% of their delivers in Q2 went to first-time buyers. Add in the 21% who are first move-up buyers, and you immediately see their core market. They are heavily targeting millennials and Gen Zs. We're talking about a massive demographic, roughly 150 million people, who are actively entering their prime household formation years and seeking out their very first homes.
And the thing is, they aren't just selling to them. They are actively winning their approval. Based on third-party, completely independent buyer surveys, KB Home boasts a 4.5 out of 5 stars Trust Builder rating. They're consistently ranked as one of the top customer-rated national home builders out there.
In fact, to put a finer point on it, your internal metrics noted that 2025 marked their highest ever full-year overall customer satisfaction score to date, coming in at just over 96%. This perfectly illustrates how that built-to-order process doesn't just, sell a house. It actively generates real long-term brand trust by making the buyer feel totally in control.
Let's pivot now to Section 4, mapping future growth.
Strategically speaking, they make substantial investments in massive land positions right within prime, high-growth submarkets. Take this aerial view of a huge new community, complete with solar panels on nearly every roof, which is a great nod to their commitment to energy efficiency. This is the macro-level scale we are dealing with here.
When we break down their Q2 2026 home building revenues by state, the strategy becomes incredibly clear. California alone generated $402.1 million. That is 36% of their total revenue. Combine that with strong, fast-paced growth in Texas at 13% and Florida at 14%, and you see this really heavy concentration in the West Coast and Sunbelt regions. They're strategically planting their flags in the exact states experiencing long-term economic and demographic booms.
Finally, Section 5, the financial reality.
Now, it's absolutely crucial to look at this objectively.
The broader housing market cooled down significantly, and it shows directly in their year-over-year data. Comparing Q2 2026 to Q2 2025, housing revenues took a stark drop of 27%, landing at $1.11 billion. Deliveries were down 23%, and the average selling price dipped 5% to $461,900. It was, unquestionably, a tougher quarter for the top line. Looking under the hood, that cooling market put immediate pressure on their profitability. The home-building operating income margin shrank from 8.6% down to just 2.5% this quarter. The context behind this drop is super vital, though. The company explicitly noted that price reductions to attract buyers, combined with higher relative land costs and reduced operating leverage, well, all of that squeezed their margins pretty tightly in Q2.
But let's look at the other side of the financial coin for a second, because despite a tough Q2, their historical lead over peers in returning value to investors is undeniable. Look at this return of capital yield since Q2 2021. KB Home sits at a staggering 48.2%. The large-cap peer average is only 31.3%, and the mid-cap average is just 27%.
That yield translates to this massive number right here, $2.0 billion. That is the total amount of cash KB Home has returned to its stockholders through share repurchases and dividends since Q2 2021 alone. It really highlights a disciplined capital deployment strategy that rewards shareholders even when macroeconomic headwinds start blowing.
Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought. We've seen the dip in recent revenues and margins, sure, but we've also seen their immense geographic footprint, their intense popularity with millennials, and their incredibly aggressive commitment to shareholder returns. So I ask you, is this built-to-order model the ultimate blueprint for surviving and ultimately thriving in a shifting housing market? It is a fascinating question to ponder as we continue to watch the real estate sector evolve. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, focused learners. Keep studying those numbers, and I'll see you next time.